So it's very prominent
Yeah, I
on
know.
screen.
Lovely.
Okay.
Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Planning Committee being held on Tuesday, the 22nd of November. I can't believe we're in November.
Unbelievable.
We don't have any apologies for absence because we're all here. So on to declarations of interest. Does anyone want to make any declarations at this point?
At this point.
No,
I can't
okay.
see any.
Anything does leap out at you, please let us know.
Absolutely. Minutes of the meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 1st of November. Are we happy to take those as a true record on the table? Lovely. That's not how I was going to bring a pen tonight, no. Completely forgot. Again.
My great habit of a life.
It's
it's not green.
Excited. Yeah, you can. With the technology.
We all had one of these, I think, at school.
That's 3 colours. Yeah.
Four.
Four.
Wow.
Oh gosh, that's starting colours and things.
Let's not tempt it.
It is the standard, isn't it?
Because you can get plastic.
That one's the standard, but it does say on there that I am a unicorn. That's on the thing.
Why?
That's just what it says. It was a gift that was given to me, so thank you.
Okay, Chairman's report and urgent items. I don't have anything to report. Do we have any urgent items?
No, nothing to report in addition to the agenda.
Lovely, very quick. Any public questions in accordance with standing orders 22 and 23?
No, none have been received for those either.
Lovely. Any letters of objection?
No,
No,
none of those either.
don't think I've had any either. Okay, so on to item 7, applications registered the weeks ending the 28th of October, the 4th of November, and the 11th of November. Start on page 11.
Yeah.
There we go. So I'll start with 5/2022/2492 at 36 Manland Avenue.
Right, okay, bear with me just a second. Okay, so. Yeah, so larger on the screen. So there we go. Okay, so 36 Manland Avenue. Property is a parcel of a pair of semi-detached properties and is located in relative close proximity to number 38 Manland Avenue. The proposal looks to marginally extend rearwards at ground floor level in line with the existing rear element with a 2-story extension partially over the depth to expand the size of the bedroom. A flat roof dormer across the full width of the property which sits in line with the ridge height is proposed, which will introduce an additional bedroom, 4 in total, and a bathroom. There are no changes to the frontage. There appears to be parking provision for 2 cars off street, not conservation area. Concerns have been raised for number 38 Manland Avenue in relation to loss of light, overshadowing, overlooking and general loss of amenity. The committee have no objection to the proposed extension subject to no loss of amenity to number 38 Manland Avenue. However, do express concern that there is insufficient parking provision on the site for the increase in bedrooms. Policies, it should be 40, although I've quoted 30. It's policy 40 and 72 of the District Plan Affairs.
Thank you.
Or ESD2 of the Department of Neighbourhood Plan Affairs.
Now,
Yes, sorry. Do you want to look at the drawings for this particular one?
do any councillors want to look at the drawing?
Yes, please.
Weird shape sign.
It is. So 38, which is essentially this one here, is the one that's kind of quite concerned. And although it looks as if there is quite a good gap, it is relatively close. If I sort of show you there, the house to the left, there isn't, it is quite close. Especially also here, you can see that there's the side garden of the neighbour just here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite close.
Is it overlooking the garden or overlooking the things?
I think it's overlooking the garden potentially, well, no, it's not overlooking necessarily, it's kind of, they're concerned about the overshadowing by the fact that it's extending out rearwards at the back.
How far is the where the conservatory is there, the glass?
Yes.
How far back is it going from there?
Can't say I fully remember.
If you go to the plan, I think it might show, got the plan there.
Plan,
Yeah,
From here.
there you can see, it is extending a little bit further back.
It doesn't look to be going much, though, does it?
no, I think that the issue that they might have more than anything is the fact that there's this dormer window.
Yes.
But, yeah, looking at it, I've kind of said it, there isn't really, as far as I can see, there isn't really anything majorly wrong with it.
Yeah, just bring your neck quite a lot to be able to overlook that garden. So
Yeah.
I would be more concerned about overlooking the 40 and over the number beyond 40 is 42.
Apparently, there's some history to attach to the house. It's one of 3 pairs of houses designed by the architect Henry Salisbury, who was local, obviously. But of course, the changes have been made at the back rather than in the front.
Is it locally listed?
No,
No, it's not conservation area.
but I mean, the argument saying it ought to be. but
Yes.
It's character.
If there is variance, it's also because it is designed by one of the Salisbury's, and there is an issue with preserving the.
I must
As
admit,
it's designed.
my reaction, when I looked at this before, it's at the back. To me, the mass and the bulk at the back in relation to number 38 is, yeah, I'm not too happy with it, if I'm number 38.
Any other comments from councillors?
Only I think that sometimes those drawings make the roofs look a bit worse than they are in practice.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that swings and roundabouts work the other way as well, so.
Yeah.
that's on drawing. I mean, I think it's the fact that the dormer is at the rear makes me more comfortable. I wouldn't
Oh,
want
yeah,
to see
yeah,
it
yeah.
at the front, it would have been
Yeah.
wholly unacceptable, but at the rear, I think it's. Okay.
I'm happy with the officer recommendation.
I just wonder, given that we have local knowledge that it is one of 3 adjacent pairs of semis designed by the local architect Henry Salisbury, whether to weave that into what we're saying. I don't mean to change it into a refusal or anything like that, but just to weave it into what we say.
The committee notes that it's one of the historic semis and therefore.
It has been extended in the past.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, we're not saying don't do it. We're just saying this is something to.
Just
Very much.
make, ensuring that it retains the character of that property or something
Yes.
stuff, but it's not a not a concern, it's just a, something to flag.
Subject to.
Well, you could sort of say, could subject to no loss of amenity, like I said here, and no detrimental effect on the what do you say, historical nature of the house, which, or on the design of the house, which is one of the historic semis designed by Henry Salisbury, whatever, something
Yeah.
along those
Yeah.
lines, couldn't you?
Just somewhere we get the language in.
Yes.
Okay, with that amendment, are we happy to go the recommendation on the favour?
Okay, that's great. Leave that in. Necessary variance.
5. Sorry. Anyone else got any plans?
No, just a few days.
Okay, 5, 2022, 2534 and 2563. Don't meet the criteria, nor does 2565. So on to 5, 2022, 2532 at 1 Lee Road.
Okay, the existing bungalow is sited on the junction of Lee Road and Clarendon Road and is surrounded by 2-storey dwellings. Planning permission has already been granted for a pair of semi-detached properties on this site. This application is for a single detached dwelling, albeit that the scale and massing is similar to the approved scheme. However, the design and look of the proposal do differ quite dramatically. A centralised gabled projection has been introduced along with accommodation in the roof space with Velux windows to all elevations to create a 5-bedroom property. The road naturally slopes down towards number 3 Lee Road, and the ridge height of the proposed dwelling is 300 millimetres higher, partly caused by this slope. This proposal appears to be quite dominant on the plot and at odds with the street scene. The neighbouring property has a hipped roof, which further increases its dominance. Only two parking spaces have been included in the scheme, both of which are positioned parallel with the front of the property with only a single dropped curb, making accessing and leaving the spaces quite tricky. A bike stall has been included, however, the number of parking spaces provided is insufficient for a 5-bedroom dwelling. There are trees on the site which are all to be retained, and it's not conservation area. On to that. Consider recommend refusal. The proposed dwelling presents a dominant appearance on the plot and is at odds with the street scene. Concern is also expressed over the location of the proposed parking spaces sitting parallel to the property with only one access and egress point, which could cause highway conflict to vehicles entering the road. Policies 34, 40, 69 and 70 of the district plan, and policies ESD 1, ESD 2 and T11 of the Harpenden Neighbourhood Plan affects. So I'm assuming you'd like to see the drawings for this one.
As you rightly said, the houses roundabout, our houses is the only bungalow. And they're not particularly small houses, and they're on Clarendon Road, the back is not.
I remember this one.
And the one in Mid Road. I'm not sure it's one or two, there's one.
It's relatively recent we discussed this.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
It's allowed a hybrid road.
I mean, that parking space there, you'd need to be Lewis Hamilton
Yes.
to park.
Oh, there's only one
No, that's just the case.
One drop curve as well.
And I think from memory, I think it's quite a sharp turn, isn't it, from Clarendon Road?
Yes,
into
it
the road?
is.
It's a right
Yes.
angle, right?
It's right angle, isn't
So
it?
you can
Yes.
see there actually on this one here, that
Yes.
it is the,
A lot.
so the left of that hedge is.
It's right, I was gonna say it's a sharp, it is a sharp turn.
I'll give £1,000 that you can get that car in that space. With the other, with the other car on the right.
I'll just nip out now.
To be clear, with the other car on the right.
So the other point I had on that plan, that the building line seems to be moved forward. It's not in line with 3 and 3A
That's true.
for a start.
It's better moving the house back and then you could
Yeah.
enter forward
Yes.
with your car.
I mean, it's a slightly interesting manoeuvre, getting your cars in and out, isn't it?
But you can't do it.
How are you going to do it?
You could get a car
I mean, you'd
into
have to
either space,
obviously
but you
move off
can't
and
get a
move
car
back
into
in.
both.
Yes.
Yeah, which, yeah.
I wonder why they're doing that.
Yeah.
If highways have given free advice that they can't have, what do you call it, drop curves too close to the corner, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, you wonder whether or not, why they didn't consider maybe putting parking at the rear of the property and actually
yes.
gaining and coming in off
Or-
of Clarendon Road and.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you lose a nice back garden, I guess.
Or,
And a tree.
yes, or, I can't quite see why they don't extend it
Back.
back rather than, well.
Well, because the garden's quite short, it's shorter
quite
than the three,
shortish,
three
yes,
gardens,
but,
but
I mean, you're not getting, that's one car parking space.
yes.
Because you can't get both cars at the same time.
there are different, it's a pair of semis, so it's an ownership, you're not going to get the.
No, no, it's now a,
No, it's a single detached. They've got planning permission for a pair of semis, which I think could be the
Yeah.
drawings for that floating around.
it's now just one property.
Yes.
And it's
But
not
it's bigger.
sufficient parking anyway,
Yeah.
even with those
Yeah.
spaces.
And because it's so near the turning, that's quite a, it's potentially quite a dodgy manoeuvre.
I don't know the road very well, is it residential
Yes,
beyond it?
yes, it's all the way down. Yes,
Now, we do have an issue here that there's history, there's something already approved on this site.
Yeah.
And therefore, we can't, what,
But
we can't
what,
criticize things that have been approved.
yeah, but what was approved was two semis and what they're proposing
Yes.
is one,
Yeah.
two, or
and
three.
it's fundamental.
It's a pretty fundamental.
Fundamental change.
And I prefer the design of it to semis as well. I think that it was, you can put it in the consideration, but the middle gable bit looks, a bit cost, whereas I prefer the design of the two. Did that make sense?
Approved, proposed, right, okay.
It looks, I mean,
Not much difference, though, is there?
the two semis at least as well look less dominant because of the fact they've got that on the right. It's got that hipped,
Yeah.
roof.
What was the parking suggestions when it was two semis? Because that would need much more parking.
We need two driving.
Yeah.
But I think with the two semis, it was going to be in another crossover, wasn't it? It would have to.
Yeah,
Yes,
And
because we
and the building
expressed
line,
concern about an additional
Yes.
crossover.
but that would made more sense than,
Yeah.
it's the building line moving forward, that, assuming it's moving forward, that, to me, it looks just, doesn't look right.
Yeah. And sort of creates parking issue as well, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that they. Oh, that's at the middle, yeah, exactly.
An unusual decision to go from two semi-detached properties to a.
Sorry, that was
sorry,
just
I'm
a
not sure
check
you are
on
laughing at me.
It's just.
That's not.
Actually, that tower at the front mimics the one round the corner in Clarendon Road. This one's one.
Yeah.
I don't mind the look of the proposed, but say the building line and the parking.
I think the parking, we think, is the whether districts will refuse it. Parking.
So which way round do you mention about Clarendon, Roger? You said it matches. in
If you
Clarendon.
go around the corner to Clarendon,
To the right. would you
and on the
go?
right hand side, so it's at the back of the back garden. is the
Right,
one we're looking
okay,
at.
yeah.
I can't remember, was there any comment from Highlands?
What, for the last one?
Or for this one?
No, there's no comments at all for this one when I looked before the meeting. Right, so let me share this screen.
Of the number of bedrooms, was the point spaces, it's totally.
I mean, suppose if you're a neighbour, you might not comment, given something very similar has already got permission.
It also.
Yes, because that's not hugely different, is it?
No.
It also, when you look at it like that,
Yes.
Yeah, so it's still got that.
will be.
And then around the
I
end.
quite understand that.
Yeah.
It's on the side. Yeah.
So that the back garden, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so this
the
here-
property on the right is the application.
Yeah.
So this, yes, I mean, this kind of gives you an idea of actually how large the plot is as well, which, you know, it's not the largest.
It's not the
That's
largest.
not the
gonna
largest
be-
plot.
That's gonna be an enormous amount of development in that area.
Yeah. Did you say the drawings make the back garden, rear garden look bigger than it looks?
Yeah, it's not really.
Yeah, sort of kind of coming into Lee Road.
But I guess if it's a detached, then you've got double the amount you would have if it was a semi, presumably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't show it, but parking, cars park all the way along Lee Road.
Yeah, you can see
So
that.
it's not only is it a matter of
Yeah.
the positioning, it's the fact, I don't know when they took that photograph, but I mean, normally if you drive
It
down
is
Lee
12
Road,
years ago.
if you drive down Lee Road, there are cars parked all the way down it.
Is that railway station car parking?
No, I suspect it's
school?
resident parking when there's limited space for more
Oh,
than
so
one
yeah.
car. I don't know. I don't think it's station
Because
parking. I
it's quite
think
a
it's,
long way, isn't it?
yeah, yes, I think it's resident parking because the
I
drives
suspect
are
so.
only, precisely because drives can't.
Maybe some school. the
Can't
next
take
school
the,
parking.
because of the drives can't take
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
sufficient number of cars.
yeah, you're right, because there are quite a few older houses.
Yes,
Well,
with relatively small drives, front gardens, they can only take.
Yeah.
we're expressing concern about the parking,
No,
refusing parking.
So the current recommendation
No. so
is
it's parking.
refusal based on dominant appearance, street scene, parking. And highway complex.
Building line,
We can.
We can add
Well,
that, yeah.
it's
Bill,
it's
given-
brought forward as a building line.
Given the fact that, yeah, I agree, that's probably a stronger argument than the
I think,
dominant.
yeah, I think that's a much stronger
The same thing has been,
Yes,
the same dominant thing has been approved.
Yeah,
and it's not that dissimilar to other
But the difference is, I think this one is closer to the boundary.
I think that's, yes.
Okay, it is, yeah.
And therefore it's more dominant.
If it was on the building
You
line, you could probably
go back to
park your
the-
cars.
When it was on the building line, you could, there wouldn't be the problem.
That's
That's one thing.
I know.
If they stuck with the building line, there wouldn't be a problem with the parking.
Why they did it?
Closer to here, yeah, no, I don't think it has.
There was room to go further.
Looking at a plan from this distance, it's not trees.
I think it's still the same.
Yeah, it's fine. It's that little block thing on the right that confused me.
I think it does now because there's text written in this here.
Yes. Lovely. So with the addition of the point about building line, any other changes that we'd like to make to the recommendation? No, all in favour with that amendment?
Okay, so you're happy to recommend with these.
Yeah.
So on the basis of that, are you minded to call this application in?
I personally am not. Anyone have any strong opinions?
No, I think especially as it's reasonably close to what's been approved already. I think we have to leave it to an answer.
I think that's fair.
Okay,
Do I need a
that's-
resolution?
So,
to-
you need to vote to
All in
say.
favour of not calling it in?
calling
I'm sure we don't need to vote if someone's proposed calling it in.
Yeah. I think, well, we can discuss the process later and I think we can go through all of this.
Chair, I've just got a question for me.
Yeah.
A couple of pages on, I just note we've got some office recommendations which are 2 pages long. And the next office recommendation is almost a page long. Is there something that says that it has to be read out? I'm just thinking, I don't know whether we need Heather to read out 2 pages of A4. It might
I
be
mean,
quite a long time.
I'm quite happy to kind of condense down in a sense.
If Heather is happy to summarise, I think we can take,
Yeah.
we can take summaries.
I expect we can take it.
5/2022 2566 at 20 Greenway.
Okay, so
Is it Greenway? Last time?
I don't think we've seen this one before. So you happy for me to read this one out?
Yeah.
Just quickly, so anyway, non-material amendment to an already approved scheme submitted earlier this year but was refused. This application looks to formally approve those changes with a full application. The changes are the removal of the front canopy porch, change to the size of the side elevation window and change of materials from the block to render and large cladding. The rest of the scheme appears to be unchanged, which essentially were the infill extension to the rear ground floor, open plan living accommodation, a small addition to the lounge, conversion of the garage, and an extension at first floor level over the footprint of the ground floor extended element to create an additional bedroom, and relocate another which has become a bathroom.
Do we know if it's retrospective or?
It's not, no. So they had the non-material amendment refused, which has meant they've had to submit a full application to those changes. So no, it's not retrospective.
Lovely. Any comments from councillors on this one?
I'm so sorry, I missed, do you want to go back over that? Because I wasn't looking. Yeah,
That one?
well, no, the middle, but that's it, okay. The previous scheme, now what is the amendment?
So they're very small. I think if you look at the wording, explains exactly what it is, but they're very minor. So there's nothing particularly
It's-
dramatic.
The cladding and renders the only thing I think. It's fine.
They're removing the front canopy porch, some changes to the size of windows and changes to materials.
I think it's fine.
Basically.
There's a mix down there. I think available correction in Greenway.
Yes, because, I mean,
Okay, all in favour of no objection.
Okay.
5/2022/2571 does not meet the criteria required for consideration. So on to 5/2022/2582 at 82 Wheathampstead Road. You want
Okay, so property has undergone a number of improvements around the same time that two infill properties were built to the rear in land that form part of this property. Property still retains its original character and design. This proposal is to introduce a glass and balustraded terrace from the first floor bedroom over flat roofed ground floor element. There is glazing to the rear and side. The block drawing with the plan states that there is over 24 metres from the terrace, the front elevation of 82B Weehampstead Road. And I'll say consider no objection, subject to notice of amenity to the neighbouring properties. Just here depicts essentially where the terrace is going to be.
Where, on Weehampstead Road?
So it's sort of, it's on the corner as you're going in towards, I think it's Highfirst or whatever, Meadway.
I think Meadway is the parish boundary station.
But this is definitely still,
Definitely.
yeah, so it's,
Sorry, it's just, I had a thought when I looked at it, I couldn't remember what I thought it was or wasn't.
yeah, no, it still forms
Yeah.
part of our boundary, yeah.
I did notice recently Parish Council had commented
Oh,
on
have
the
they?
application. Yeah, it's
But
not
it comes, yeah, but it comes under Harpenden, well,
Yes.
essentially it's Harpenden South, it's
Yeah.
the warding
Was
that's
it
come
the
up, so.
Remember what they said?
Oh, no, but what is
There
the
was no
district?
objection.
What is
They
the
didn't-
district? Sorry.
District is Harpenden South, but the district ward at Harpenden South is bigger than the Harpenden South ward at the moment because
Yeah,
the
so-
district
so-
is still
so
doing it.
is that two votes? Town ward and district ward.
We think
Possibly
so.
at the moment, yes.
Okay.
But it's not like where we have this Harpenden North and Harpenden Rural, where I have to be very careful
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
analyse. This does fall under.
That's fine, I just thought I'd check. Anyway, thank you, Heather, for your observations. Any comments from councillors on this one?
Can we go back to the picture where you had the two houses?
Oh.
So the terrace, is it a rear terrace that would
Yes,
be
so it's-
overlooking, is it first floor?
Yes, so it's going over the ground floor element. I can show you
I mean, the only thing is, I suppose, that obviously if someone's sitting out on the terrace, they're looking directly into effectively the front bedrooms of two houses, aren't they? I guess, but-
But it's pretty far away.
It's stated that it's 24 metres away, which
Yeah.
is kind of is far beyond the required distance that.
I'm less bothered by overlooking on the front aspect than I am on the back.
I have no objection.
It's 85 feet or thereabouts.
Okay, any other comments from councillors? No? All in favour of the recommendation?
Agreed.
5/2022/2552 does not meet the criteria required for consideration. So on to 5/2022/2559 at Holly Lodge, 10 Park Avenue.
Okay, so this application you probably will remember we looked at not overly long ago and was refused on the basis that really loss of amenity and things to number 8 Park Avenue South from rear elements. This application has been resubmitted with those rear elements basically reduced. They've also drawn it in from the boundary with number 8 much more. And interestingly, when I checked just before the meeting, there were no objections from number 8 Park Avenue South, who last time were quite vocal and concerned. So I can obviously show you the drawings, but in my view, they've done quite a dramatic amount to reduce the impact and to address the reasons why district refused it last time, which was solely on those reasons.
Any comments from council? Can we see the plans?
Yes, of course. So from the front, it doesn't look a lot different, but to the rear, there is quite a dramatic difference.
Any tree works? I don't know.
No. So really, the most of it is the same. You know, other elements in terms of the balls going and.
That's the tree for which they have a death certificate.
Very morbid.
So, the diffuse. To get out the drawing.
This is from one where the neighbour submitted their own.
They,
Drawing.
I think they had, yeah, they'd kind of recruited a person to do their own kind of diagrams. So these are all the refused ones that you've got there. So these ones can hopefully show to you where they've reduced it quite dramatically at the rear. So the blue dashed line shows where the
Probably best to keep more together as well.
Yeah, you can see what that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that one there would be quite a good one. I won't show you anymore. Doesn't help when they submit so many papers.
The thing I would, the thing I would be concerned by is the district council's refusal. As much as it was about the scale and the bulk and the size, it was also about the siting, creating a cramped appearance and visually obtrusive form of development. And I'm not convinced it's changed that much on that score. No, but my point is less whether or not it has. My point is if the district council's point was about the front, do we want to address the fact that the district council has concerns about the effect on the street scene, given that the street scene is virtually identical? Or are we content that we can leave that to district council to pick up? Is my question.
Should leave it to district.
I'm going to say if we want to, we're not making a permanent refusal, we're just pointing it out.
No, that's fine.
That's fine,
I would think.
yes.
I just thought.
It's appointed for the
Yes.
officer. So
And you can put in always, obviously subject to previous reasons.
Yeah.
That's what I think, when you, I think we was putting the word subject to
I know. It's just,
previous reasons for refusal being addressed.
at previous meetings of this committee, we've done it both ways. I just thought I'd raise and make sure.
it's easier, but
I mean, I did read out actually that my recommendation was no objection subject to the previous reasons for refusal being fully addressed and no loss of meeting to neighbouring properties, in particular number 8 Park Avenue South, the appropriate design and use of materials in the Hartley conservation area.
Yeah.
Policies, yeah, H1 and EST2.
I think that's fine. That it's specific reference.
No,
Number 8.
Number 8 is actually an increased sale.
No, I mean, that looks like.
Oh, Park Avenue is an.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
my point was just if
Yeah.
the district had raised it, did we want to specifically point them towards it or we have to pick it up? Fine. All in favour of the recommendation?
Okay, that's it.
Sorry, back to 82, which is in reference to information.
Is that down as Wheathampstead on the?
It's outside the parish boundary.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Well, I'll just say
You
that it's
check all
outside.
things,
No,
but
that's okay. I can just do what I've done with the previous one. Thank you. With another application that's on the list to say that it's outside of our parish.
well, that explains why we've considered commented on it.
It's fine.
We considered
It's not a
commented on it.
problem.
I'll check.
Yes.
Check.
Well, no, if it shows on the district website that it's under the planning application, then
Yes.
it's, yeah,
It's
it's
the
fine.
first one outside.
But I think the bizarre thing is.
I thought it was.
Yes, but I think the bizarre thing is on the website, so it's in Harpenden.
Yeah, because I know that we looked at the application
They
for
said it's in
those rear
Ah,
properties.
right, yes,
Yes.
okay, so they go, yes.
The only reason I vaguely know where the parish boundary is around there is where they have that
Yes.
notice board.
Yes, which is really why I just read why I clear it, because I saw Newton's did commented, but it was
That's right.
listed as being in Harpenden.
Okay, 5/2022, 2523 does not meet the criteria required for consideration. So on to 5/22, 2022 even, 2523, can't speak. 2537 at 46 Crabtree Lane.
Okay, so I will read this one out. So currently on the plot is a relatively dated 4-bedroom detached property with good sized front and rear gardens. The proposal is to demolish the existing property and replace with a pair of 4-bedroom semi-detached dwellings with accommodation in the roof space. Properties are currently staggered in the street scene with number 42 set quite a bit further forward and 48 set a short distance back. The new proposal sits over the footprint of the existing property with a marginal increase to the left-hand property due to the right-hand property sitting over the footprint of the current conservatory, where the rear elevations are stepped in at the first floor level to reduce any impact on number 48. There's a small increase of 355 millimetres in the roof ridge height from existing, with proposed roof form picked in and a single dormer window to the rear. Proposals do fill the plot with the side walls almost joining the boundary lines, but are stepped in at first floor level by 1 metre as required under planning guidance. There are a number of similarly designed and massed properties in this vicinity, although the proposed number 46A could be viewed to cause a possible detrimental impact on number 44 Crabtree Lane. There is parking provision of 3 cars to each property and good sized gardens. No fee works are proposed and the site is not in the conservation area. So this here actually shows what they're looking to do. So I have said express concern the proposal could be deemed an overdevelopment of the plot in terms of its close proximity to the neighbouring properties, boundary lines, and the increase in ridge height, which could have a detrimental impact on number 44 Crabtree Lane.
Having said that, roof height is pretty slightly less than the house to one side and only slightly more than the house to the other side. But it does fill the plot more, but that's the point of development.
Yes, I think there was a letter of objection.
There
wasn't
was,
from
yeah, so-
Closer Close, which must be that new infill
So yeah,
thing
so
down the side there.
there was a letter of objection from number 1 Chaucer Close and also from number 48 Crabtree Lane as well online.
If you go back to the original photograph.
Yeah.
When I was looking at the photograph, I thought I'd be much happy to see just a single detached house there. It looks as too small a plot to have 2 semis, but then when you actually look at the sketch, it maybe doesn't look quite as bad.
There is a precedent in the sense in that area for that style of dwelling. You know, a pair of semis, if I spin round, you'll see that on the opposite side of the road, it's essentially,
There is.
it's exactly what
Yes.
they're looking to do here.
Yeah.
Yes, because they're actually, it's very mixed on Crabtree.
Yeah.
And that looks quite a dated house. It looks quite inefficient use of the space, I think.
Yeah. The gentleman that lived there passed away,
Right.
so
So
it's,
yeah.
It's a shame they
Are they
lose.
paving the whole pitch or those daffodils?
yeah.
Presumably just go to effectively 2 driveways, would it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It looks with the daffodils there, just I know it adds a little bit of.
Yeah, yes.
It is a shame
So
that
that-
there is no low planting.
Yes, there are semis, yes, they've got, yes.
I mean, in a sense, my views were slightly shaped, shall I say, by the resident that came in to see me.
What was the main? Just the overdevelopment.
So, yeah, so they were concerned about sort of kind of precedents being set and an overdevelopment and.
You look at it like that, it doesn't look wide enough for 2
No.
proposed
So, I
semis, does
mean,
it?
when you sort of kind of see the house to this side, it's quite substantial.
Yes.
Yes, right.
It's just
Yes, right.
the angle of the camera. The person you spoke to, the neighbours were all behind.
They were the neighbours. So they were number 48, which I think is the property to the left.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the letters was people behind.
Yeah.
It's one of those new developments, isn't it? Well, I think newish when you go down fairly narrow, they're concerned about.
Yeah, Chaucer, yeah, it
Because
is.
it's a very narrow access road.
So they're just here.
Yeah,
Chaucer Close is just here.
Yes.
But anyway, so part of the reason I wanted to sort of show you this street scene is that if I spin round directly on the opposite side of the road is,
That looks a wider plot. But yeah.
in terms of style, we've got clearly a number of properties. But it is, as you say, it's
Swishing in.
a smaller plot.
Was the infill behind
Yes.
people selling a part of their back garden?
I don't actually know, actually. I think looking at this in here, I believe that number 46, 44 and 42 sold their back garden. show you that one, you can see that the properties to either side of those have got much longer strip gardens.
Oh,
And there's a definite chunk that
Yes,
feels like
because there's a lot of land
behind,
behind.
which also close was built, I think it was a good few years ago now.
I could be persuaded either way, but I'm happy with the officer recommendation.
I would agree. I'd live with the expressed concern.
Yes.
I was happy with that.
All in favour of the correct?
Okay, that's agreed. Which leads me on to the question about calling.
I wouldn't call it. All in favour of not calling it in?
Okay, so I will not initiate the calling.
Beautiful stuff. 2022 2594 47. I've gone too quickly. Because I was doing that
That's
plan.
all right, no, that's fine.
47 Morton and Lane. Your observations on
I'm sorry, bear with me a second to just stop sharing this and start sharing. Okay.
your recap. What
Yeah.
you showed. What you might have missed so far.
Okay, so 47, Morton End Lane, properties part of proposed semi-detached properties. Ground floor proposals are to add 2 small extensions to the rear, one in line with the neighbour's building line and the other in line with the existing kitchen element. First floor is proposed to expand bedroom 1 over the front, the front flat roof garage element. Gosh. But the main change is the addition of the 5th bedroom in the roof space with the introduction of a flat roof dormer window to the rear. Roof form to the side of number 45 Morton End Lane is increasing to accommodate the roof accommodation with roof work to replace the front, the double hip element to the rear. The neighbouring property has a double garage to the side with this property, which reduces any possible impact. The road is made up of a number of styles of property and is not in the conservation area. There are internal alterations proposed to the garage, which prevents it from being used as a parking space, and there are 2 parking spaces off the street. So committee have no objection to the proposed extensions, however, do express concern of the loss of parking space within members proposed to the garage, given an additional bedroom is proposed.
Right, so it's not that far from the junction, is it? With Avenue.
No, I think it's a little bit further off and
It's a
then
little
it's,
further up.
yeah.
Okay, any comments from councillors?
Happy with the recommendation. I mean, we've got to mention the parking to be consistent, although I
Yeah.
would imagine they don't use that garage for a park.
I do that route for deliveries and I've never seen the bins not in front of the door, which means I would assume it's never used as a garage. Can't say that with any degree of certainty. Just from assumption. Okay, all in favour of the recommendation?
Okay, that's agreed.
Okay, 2022 2630 2645 and 2567 do not meet the criteria required for consideration by this committee. So on to 5 2022 2633 at 51 Park Rise.
Okay, so we've got actually 2 applications for this particular site. So the first of them is that the proposal is to extend along the boundary of number 53 Park Rise at ground floor level to create a playroom and to extend existing roof accommodation to enlarge the existing bedroom and create an ensuite and storage space. This is achieved by changing the roof hip to gable end and the introduction of a flat roof dormer to the rear. Proposals appear to be an acceptable addition to the property. There is space to the side with the main property of number 53 Park Rise, as they have a detached single garage along the boundary line, not conservation area. Consider no objection.
Thank you.
Where's the garage, right?
Next door.
To the left, yeah. So it sort of reduces the impact on that.
There's quite a slope here, and the next door house down the slope is a bungalow. This house is already quite a lot higher than the roof line. And they're changing the roof form, which will actually make it even more domineering.
It seems to be, I don't know whether it's just the angle.
Mm.
The other house facing off down to the left a bit.
It's on the corner.
Yeah, so I don't know whether. I don't know.
They're, well, I mean, you can look at the drawings, but in this particular application, they're not looking to build the first floor to the side. It's only ground, ground.
Yeah,
floor
but
to the side.
they're straightening the roof up.
Yeah.
No neighbour objection.
No, and I was going through them just as before the meeting commenced.
Yes. Ground floor is on the side.
In this particular application, the next one, they are putting something at first floor to the side.
Okay, probably. Just a little bit more at a time.
Pardon?
Probably simple to think
It is,
about
yeah,
it at a time,
absolutely. So, yeah, that's why I'm showing you the drawings for this
Exactly.
particular application, and we'll make a recommendation to this one. Just I'm using the same photo because it's the same house.
Any comments from council?
Well, I mentioned the sort of domineering effect of changing the roof form because it's a lot higher than the next door property on a downward slope.
So
And then we've used that in the past as a reason to whether was object or express concern.
would you like us to express concern in your opinion? Roger?
Oh, yeah.
I'd go along with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I will put to a vote based on the roof line and the effect that might have on the neighbour expressed concern.
What's the effect on the street?
Yeah, street scene and.
Yes, because it would be quite long.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All in favour of that recommendation?
But it was Blaze Street scene and not necessarily the neighbour.
Straight to both. Thank you.
We have a very long trip, 5/2022, 2634 51 Park Rise.
Okay, so essentially it's exactly the same application as what they were proposing in the other one, but they are looking to extend along the side at first floor level and then further increase the size of the dormer. So taking that
Down the same left, well, presumably down the left.
down exactly the same size.
So
Yeah.
presumably we're
So presumably-
at least doing express concern.
Express concern. Because it will be even more dominant effect.
Use that as the comparison.
Here's the recommendation with
Yes,
negative.
express concern is even more. Yes.
Yes, so actually, the third extension is not very wide.
No.
Um,
It's at an extension.
third
And it's coming out right along the boundary wall.
Yeah,
Right up to it, isn't it? Yes.
All I will say is that we'll have a bit of a party wall problem in negotiating that. The building right up against the party wall there.
There's the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm entirely sure we can.
You wonder whether that garage roof goes over onto.
I think there is a little small,
Is there?
yeah.
There is a, we can go.
I'll just go to, I'll go to the version.
okay, so there's a first floor extension and also the roof gets extended.
Yeah,
So whereas before we expressed concern about the dominating effect of the roof
Yeah.
changing shape, it's now changing shape and moving.
And moving it over,
Yeah,
as it were.
because
so it's not clear by how much. Couple of meters maybe, but then right up to the boundary. Sorry, who's not seen this?
I've probably seen it before.
It's a very sharp angle, that, isn't it? I'm not sure why that house would really be that bothered. You know,
I don't-
faces completely away from.
I don't think there's much difference between this and.
There's not,
what we looked at.
It is actually, when you look at it from that viewpoint, it is Yes, because it's not actually flush with it, is it?
No, I was happy, I mean, I was happy with the first one. I'm probably happy with this one as well.
So it's more concerned.
I think it's just the same recommendation.
Yes.
Instead of talking about reforms.
Yeah.
Side extension.
I think it's more the street scene, isn't it, than the,
Yeah.
they put both in, but it's more the effect on the streets, you know.
Okay,
Do you want to go along with them, that same wording?
I think the
Yeah.
same wording except as in addition to. We talked about, side extension on the roof. Sorry, first floor side extension. Any other comments from councillors? No, all in favour? Lovely. Just because I didn't do it on the last one, assuming we don't want to call in either of these applications, so all in favour of not calling them in?
Okay, so I will not initiate calling for either application for 51 Park Rise.
5:20. Sorry. 5/2022 2602 5 Hatching Green Close.
I recognise the address.
Sorry, you don't know the applicant.
No. I mean, I just recognise the road name. I'm trying to picture where it is.
It's just off of Redbourne Lane.
Yeah, it's good. Little way down Ripple Lane.
Yes, just as you turn into it, it's on the left.
Opposite the pub.
I
Yes.
turned into it by accident 2 days
Yes.
ago. That's why I recognise it.
And I think we had an
I was trying to turn into the house, the next one along.
and I think we had an application
Yeah.
of the opposite side of the road.
We did, yes, so it's kind of, it curves round and there was an application for a new build in the garden of, I think it was 6 actually.
I feel like Harrison would like to add to the record
Yes.
your credit to their
Laughing
lawn.
in bloom with it. That's what's going on.
Play a World Cup game on that, you could.
Right, okay. Street is characterised by spacious open plots with detached bungalows. This proposal looks to convert the existing garage into habitable accommodation, add an open porch to the front, expand the existing rear conservatory element to create a more open plan living space and include an extension to the side to relocate the garage and introduce a third bedroom. Material changes also propose the frontage to make it look more modern. The openness is still retained. The proposals are proposed to the side where there is a long distance to the closest neighbour. The site is not in the conservation area but sits on the edge. Parking for 3 cars on site, consider no objection.
That's all ground floor.
Yeah.
All ground floor, yeah.
I agree.
Any other pictures?
That.
Put it onto the street scene. Not a lot.
Not much.
No,
No, they're all-
Yeah.
it's all pretty.
Basically, they're building to the side, if I can just go here, where that shed is.
Yeah.
And they're essentially what they're doing is they're relocating the garage along there so that they can utilise the garage space for house accommodation.
So it's a 2-bed at the moment.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Considering what it's worth, probably.
Well, it's quite,
Not very dense.
No, but it's a nice garage.
Yeah. You get some nice people going down there.
All in favour? Okay, 5/2022 2627 at 71A West Common.
Okay, the property is a relatively new addition to the rear of number 71 West Common. It presents as being a bungalow from the street scene, but the land is cut away at the rear to accommodate a 2-storey dwelling and is accessed, off a narrow privately owned road. Proposals for the site are at lower ground floor level, viewed only from the garden elevation, are mostly changes to the windows and removal of internal walls to create an open plan living space. At upper ground floor level, street scene, is proposed to convert the double garage into bedroom accommodation with a rear extension to fall in line with existing house rear projection. Infill the existing open entrance element to create a dressing room for bedroom 1 and to relocate the front door to the side of proposed new bedroom in place of the garage. The number of bedrooms on the site remains at 3. 2 dormer windows are also proposed in the roof space, one to enlarge the existing roof study space and the other to create headspace for a small library below. Parking provision remains in the double carport on the frontage. The existing internal layout and configuration of windows are a little unorthodox, and these proposals attempt to bring it into a more usable family home. Despite the changes proposed, visually from the street scene they are modest, with the addition of timber cladding to sections of the frontage, but the property already presents with a modern style and look, so these appear to be in keeping. The property is a good distance away from all neighbouring properties, no tree works are proposed, and the property is in the conservation area, and I'd say consider no objection. So, yeah, you can sort of, it's bizarre to look at it like that. It looks just like a very modest bungalow, but actually the back of the property is that.
That seems fine to me.
It's okay to me.
Yeah.
So you can see here that it's actually a long way away from
Anybody, yes.
Unlike other streets and problems in that. All in favour of the recommendation?
That's agreed.
Okay, 5/2022, 2636 is not on the criteria. So on to 5/2022, 2513, 1 St Martin's Close.
This property sits at the end of a row of staggered height terrace properties, and along with number 2 St Martin's Close is approximately 1.4 metres lower than other properties in the terrace. The main proposal is to raise the ridge height by 800 millimetres to create a 4th bedroom and ensuite in the roof, the flat roof rear dormer window and front skylight. The full width rear conservatory is proposed to be replaced with a brick built structure with partial glazed / partial sedum planted roof. It is also proposed to improve the front porch to mirror the style and size of the neighbouring property. The frontage is block paved with 2 off-street parking spaces. Due to the layout of properties in the road, which rises steeply, the proposed increase in roof ridge height creates a disruption in the flow of properties, leading to a mismatch with number 2 St Martin's Close. There are no tree works. It is not conservation area but borders the green belt. Consider recommend refusal. The proposed increase in ridge height creates an unbalanced look and detrimental effect on the street scene. Concern is also expressed that there is insufficient parking provision for the increase in bedrooms. Policies 40 and 72 of the district plan and ESD 1 and 2 of the Harpenden neighbourhood plan. So yeah, you might want to potentially see these.
Yeah.
Yes. Is this the land to the side? Yeah.
Don't give anyone
Yeah,
ideas.
I think that land to the side is council owned actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to this particular house.
Otherwise, yeah, they would all be big.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, that's the existing, and then this is the proposed. And you can see that little one in the middle.
Yeah.
Going to be.
Yes, it will look
Odd.
odd. It's
Yeah.
it'll look decidedly strange.
And I think
won't
it's
it?
made to look even worse because the houses next door to that are even higher.
Yes. It'll look very.
It wouldn't be that
very
bad if the houses next to it were
Well,
level.
No,
It would still be a bit weird, but
but
it
it
wouldn't
will
look
look. It'll look really strange.
Yeah.
And when you have a row of houses which are very, very similar, especially the terrace, you don't want to make one so ridiculously different.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the original design, which I don't know whether it's probably, whenever it was designed to give a specific street scene.
Mhm.
It is extremely steep. This is just off the
Yeah,
low
it
link
is.
road,
It is
but it's
steep, yeah.
extremely steep, so it makes it even worse.
Well, that, I mean, it's a difference between the height between the two.
Yes, it would make the house between like friendly and sound.
Well, funny enough, if the application was for the house in between, it actually
Would
wouldn't
be okay, yeah.
be surprised.
Yeah,
Or if they both.
Yes.
were the
if they
same.
both, yes, if they're both, yes, that wouldn't be so.
Well, we did have that, didn't we? A few, I can't remember, there's two.
Yeah, we do sometimes
Yeah,
get.
we had one on Luton Road actually, where they were wanting to do exactly the same, but they were just like this very specific character and
Yeah.
style.
But yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I think it's. I can't see that we have any other choice.
No,
Just refuse it.
refuse, yes. Just so
All in-
I suppose that garden. Sorry.
Anyone else want to add anything before we move to
Are we saying,
Sorry.
something about the uneven balance? It's
that?
almost like a hint that if they both applied for it, maybe we wouldn't think differently. I don't know.
So I mean, I say that the proposed increase in ridge height creates an unbalanced look and detrimental effect on the street scene, so I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
Yes, that says it. Yeah.
Okay, all in favour of the recommendation. Lovely. Now, on calling, I think this is touching on something that we probably should call in or recommend for calling. I'm keen to hear views.
I agree.
We could discuss call-ins later. Is it possible to defer that decision on this one until we've had that discussion?
Process we're going to put it for.
I think,
For this meeting.
I think for this meeting, we have to go with the process we've got and then we can.
What the process, there's judgment.
Pardon?
There's not so much the process, it's the judgment call.
In the sense of what we call in or in the sense of
Yeah.
process.
What we call it.
We don't know what we're going to discuss later, so.
That's why we would just postpone this, otherwise we have the discussion now.
We are refusing it, Roger. We can't be any stronger than that, can we?
I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't call this in because, I don't know, the office is going to look at it and kind of see exactly the same points
Yeah.
that we see. But ultimately, if the officer disagreed and approved, it's not a massive detriment to Harpenden. Do you know what I mean? It's not a massively beautiful, characterful street. Yeah, I don't know. It's my view.
In that case, I think the consensus is not to call in. All in favour of not calling.
Okay, so not call in.
Okay, 5/2022/2646 at 43 Ambrose Lane.
The proposal is to replace and extend the existing poor quality storage straight outhouse with projecting elements to create an open plan kitchen straight dining space and to install a two-storey rear extension over the extended ground floor element to create a bedroom. An existing bedroom is being reconfigured to become a bathroom, therefore the number of bedrooms remains at 3. Neighbouring property at number 41 Ambrose Lane is set further back on their plots, therefore reducing any possible impact on them from the proposed two-storey rear extension. Property is in the conservation area and is locally listed. There are no tree works proposed and there is off-street parking on the front of the two cars. This is no objection subject to the appropriate design and use of materials on this locally listed building in the Harpenden conservation area. So, yeah, so I think this just shows here what's existing and what they're looking to do at the back. With these images here, you can see that this property here to the side is, you know, quite dramatically further back. So actually to them, the impact is minimal. And then this shows what they're looking to replace, basically.
Just why did you use the predominant black squares?
I didn't.
Oh, it's
It's
Google.
the council. The planning, or and this is taken from the planning application.
I
So there's because they can't use images of
windows.
neighbouring properties, I assume. Don't know.
I assume it's to do with privacy from those windows.
Yes.
Nothing to do with me.
No, no.
It's obviously a bit untidy at the back.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
It's
Dilapidated rather than
And
untidy.
if you look here, you can see that the neighbour to the left has already done something pretty much similar anyway.
Yeah.
Apart from obviously only at ground floor level, and then the neighbour to the right is set so much further back that actually the first floor
That's
extension
relevant
is.
to them.
I mean, the only question, but I still think it's okay, is the house on the right-hand side, if they had a window
Yeah.
in the top bit
Mm.
like that, you know, that would now be directly opposite, wouldn't it? But probably not going to be a main
Which is
window.
implied by where placement of that black square is. We can't refer too much to the placement of black.
Yeah, but it'd be on the side elevation.
Yes.
Yeah,
But it's still a bit gap.
yeah.
So I think.
It's not going to be a key view.
No, it's not, it'd be a side window.
Yeah, so it's probably like-
And there's a bit of a gap. Not ideal, but
It's broadly okay. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Certainly the information we've got.
Yeah.
We all happy with the recommendation? All in favour?
Okay, that's agreed.
Lovely. The next one isn't ours, so on to 2022 2587 at 9 St James Road.
Okay,
Open the windows.
I know, it's brilliant.
Is that live view?
Guy here, yeah. This property presents as being a standard two-storey property from the street scene. However, there is a lower ground floor which is visible from the rear. This proposal looks to expand the ground floor living space by extending 6 metres rearwards across the full width of the property at the lower ground floor level to create open plan living space, extend rearwards by 3 metres the existing kitchen space and convert into a bedroom at upper ground floor level and first floor level to create a playroom. It appears that the neighbouring property has extended rearwards, there we go, yeah, has extended rearwards at the lower ground floor level, therefore reducing possible impact on them. Proposed upper ground floor and first floor rear extensions are positioned on the side of the property of number 7 St James's Road with a 45-degree visibility line not impeded for number 11. A small oak framed porch is also proposed in the frontage. There remains a total of 3 bedrooms in the property, therefore no change to parking requirements and not to conservation area. No objection, subject to notice of amenity to the neighbourhood properties.
Any comments from council?
You go back to the front.
Yep.
I mean, obviously the front element that they're changing spoils the symmetry of the two, but I'm happy with the recommendation.
I'm not entirely sure I'm that bothered by protecting the architectural significance.
And it's not to say that they haven't already made changes anyway. Because the fact they've extended to the rear, oops, in this picture here, would probably imply to me that they may have made changes to the frontage, but I can only go with what's available on
Google, which is 2010.
Yeah, so it's likely that they'll have, this image was taken from,
Yes.
actually it was taken from when the house was sold, because I
Yes.
took it off a right move.
The level of investigation that goes into.
Well done.
Well, I did the same for that 71 West Common as well.
Happy with the recommendation.
Lovely. All in favour?
Okay, that's agreed.
2022 2575. I think it's the second one of this one that we haven't had to talk about. This doesn't meet criteria. 2598 also doesn't. Neither does 2382. I really can't read tonight. 2022 2613 at 66 Grove Avenue.
Okay, proposes to demolish the existing double-length detached garage and extend the property to the side at 2-storey level to create additional ground floor living accommodation and a further bedroom and ensuite at first floor level. Seeing a small extension to the existing ground floor rear elevation is also proposed, which extends marginally beyond that of the neighbouring property's building line, but should not cause adverse effect. The 2-storey extension is stepped in from the boundary of number 64 Grove Avenue. It does not extend as far back or across the width of the property as the proposed ground floor extension. The roof form is hipped as per existing property and other properties in the street. Despite the loss of garage, there is parking for 3 cars on the frontage. There are no tree works and the site is not in the conservation area. No objections whatsoever to consider.
Any comments from council?
Can we just say the front?
Yes.
So the line, sorry, the hand-drawn diagonal lines, that's the extra bulk, is it?
It is, yeah. So where you've got the white long strip is the double full length garage that they're essentially taking in to become main property. So there's the existing and there's the proposed.
A lot of properties in that whole area, sort of Grove Avenue, Sydney, all around there, that a lot have been extended.
Yeah. Is it going above the garage?
No, they're actually demolishing the garage and they're leaving at least a metre gap down the side.
And parking still okay?
Yeah, because they've got 3 parking spaces already there and they're not changing the number of bedrooms.
3 small cars.
Assuming those are still.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can do see them on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, bit more controversial.
Lovely. All in favour? Yeah, nice. Short one.
This is the
Yeah, okay, to be honest, I mean, I don't have to read it all out because ultimately very little has changed from what was last time. Last time when we looked at it, we were unaware of the concerns that the fire station and the fire service themselves had, which related to the kind of conflict with the station itself. So they have attempted to mitigate against that by widening the access road to enable free flow of 2 vehicles to pass, whereas before it was single. Ultimately, the rest of it pretty much is the same. And if anything, they've provided less information this time than what they did last time. There's some reports that they haven't included that they did last time, a couple of reports that are exactly the same. They haven't done new ones. So in my view, the reasons why we were concerned last time still remain. The design is exactly the same in the properties. There's not really enough mitigation or not enough demonstrated to prove the issues we have in relation to the flooding have been mitigated or. So, yeah.
Just for the record, this is 5/2022/2522 lands to rear of Hertfordshire Fire and Ambulance Brigade. Just in case anyone is looking in YouTube, wondering what we're talking about.
Chair, I'll just ask for edification or clarification to Heather. I mean, the plan actually shows a flood pool, whatever you want to call it, a drainage pool. Is that
Soil.
technically allowable on
It
private
was-
land?
Well, it was part of the previous application.
Okay.
Yeah, it was included last time. So there's not, no, I mean, I looked at them, and to be honest, there wasn't a great deal of difference from what I can see that they really, as far as we're concerned, and I think as far as district are concerned, I would question that they have done enough to mitigate those reasons for refusal.
Yeah, I just thought any purchaser's lawyer's got to look twice at, you've got a pond like that for planning purposes, as well as the next door neighbour is going to sort
I
of.
mean, obviously, we're aware of the flooding issues that continue in that area of the road. You know, we get heavy rainfall, and there's always a big fall in that side of fire stations.
I'd also be slightly concerned, frankly, about particular widened access on that, implying that there are going to be cars using it quite regularly.
Yeah.
When it's
Yeah.
quite a different junction.
Yes, I mean, I can't see they've fully addressed the highways issue.
No, I think
And
that's,
they certainly haven't addressed the issue of design of buildings that neither enhance or complement the conservation area. I think it's very disappointing that they appear to have absolutely no appreciation whatsoever
I think the needs
of
of
the
their own,
heritage.
or if the needs of their own fire service.
Yes, true. Yes.
And what, I suppose, what would district, because obviously they're the planning authorities, well, what did they refuse it on before?
So just looking here very briefly, that they refused it actually to say that there was not enough information to prove that they were mitigated against the issues to trees and ecology. So I can't, they have not submitted anything fresh or new. I don't think they've even submitted anything at all this time, actually, in terms of that. And then the second reason related to the surface water flooding and drainage.
Actually, sorry, within the first one, they're saying in addition, the proposed layout is likely to result in future. Oh, sorry.
And they were saying that, that the existing trees that are on site could be subject to future requests for them to be pollarded or to be removed. And then, so then they said there's not enough information in relation to the surface water flooding. And then the other reason was also about the adverse impact on the operation of the fire station in terms of traffic management. So that, I think, is the area where they have tried to address it by widening the access road. And yeah, I suppose.
But they also refused on the basis of the dwellings, as they still are, basic in design and do not seem to favour any of the characteristics of the streets.
So that's wedding.
Sorry?
That's wedding.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, I mean,
So that's, yes, I guess that,
It might be,
yeah, it was somewhere, yes, but where was it?
I'm struggling to see it as well.
So
Yes,
I
but they
think
do say
it's,
that.
the district don't say anything about that. It's actually really
It's up
more
to
us,
us.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
But that's what I suppose that's what I was getting at. That almost like in terms of the, I don't know, likelihood of it happening or whatever. If they now say it's two-way traffic, that's the highway thing done, and they get an ecology report and they get a flood report, then it might be the district would grant it. Do you know what I mean? There's not.
I think more generally, the point about this site, looking at all the objections to it that we might have, is it is not a suitable site for housing.
No.
It doesn't. Obviously, they could come back with a scheme that, you know, we look at afresh and think, okay, actually, this is acceptable. But it is a field behind a fire station, which is,
It's prudent for planning.
yeah.
I know that the neighbour to the right, they've had awful problems, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
I think that the issue that we have to kind of bear in mind is that, as you just quite rightly said, it's currently grass,
Yeah.
that in a sense has got a, you know, a permeability to it, that by putting property and an extra access road onto it, we're removing the ability, the natural ability that's already there to remove flooding, so we're just going to make the issue worse.
But the flooding would not only potentially affect the houses, but the highway in front.
yes.
Which is already underwater
Which
most
already has
times that
every
I've
time-
driven through it.
more or
in the
less
last
every
few
time
months.
we have
Just
heavy
a couple of
rain.
days ago, it was underwater.
Absolutely.
Refuse collection point, that means, does that, well, I suppose if it was a,
Yes.
I don't know, if a
You'd have to,
bin lorry was reversing up there, that wouldn't be safe, really, would it?
No.
not if a fire engine was trying to come.
No, the
Yeah,
fire
or
engine
even,
protects
or
it
even
come
for
down.
people just walking around there.
Yes.
I just that refuse
Yeah.
collection
I mean,
point.
basically, it floods down there every time it rains on.
I would challenge the county council to come back to us with something that is a viable solution. If they think that this is a place for housing, but I don't think this is it personally. Any other comments you would like to raise?
So it's really,
All
same
in,
comments as before.
all in favour of the recommendation?
Okay, that's agreed. So that then moves me on to the question of calling in.
Oh, yes, well, I think, yes.
Yes.
All in favour of calling?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a tick for that, and to initiate a call in, so call in, yes.
That's the quickest we've ever agreed to call.
Given what's been said before by districts, and given that there are minimal changes, you'd expect the officer to take the same view. But it's so obvious, there's no harm in calling in. And
It's
it's
not
right to do so.
such potential community impacts.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
On the 2022-2649, a busy afternoon for Morton End Lane.
Okay, the property is flat roof contemporary style property that's set back on the plot with a large amount of screening to the frontage. Proposed extensions at ground floor level are relatively modest, creating a more uniform shape to the footprint of the property. Existing first floor rooms only take up half the footprint of the ground floor. It is proposed to add bedroom accommodation above the remaining ground floor footprint to total 5 bedrooms. This is unchanged from the existing property, which is converting existing ground floor bedrooms into living accommodation. The new first floor elevations are to be wood clad with sections of metal cladding incorporated. Parking appears to be adequate on the frontage and there are no key works. The site is in the conservation area, so don't no objection. Look at those at all.
It's a very secluded property.
I thought it was like a block of 2 flats at first when I looked
Oh,
at
does
it.
it look like a box? Yes, I was quite surprised. It originally got permission in the conservation area.
So the application, actually, what they're looking to do improves it, makes it look more like.
It makes it look better.
So, yeah.
It's actually,
Yeah, I mean, and bizarrely, the property, this sort of, it is that actually the first floor element, if you look at here, is the first floor current element is only that.
Yeah.
The rest of it is all, it's,
It's a bizarre look.
yeah, it's strange.
yes, yes, I was just
So,
saying. Yes,
you can
it's an
look at
odd
the
looking
floor.
property to have in a conservation area, but maybe it's because it's sort of secluded.
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
strongly support the changes, frankly.
Yes, but like, So if they're an improvement.
If we could make a recommendation that was, you know, even more so than no objection, you know, please let this
Please,
through.
please do this.
We'll pay for the building.
I don't promise that. All in favour of the recommendation?
Okay, agreed. Last one.
We come to you for that check, Harry.
Don't worry, you've already challenged.
That's good, thanks.
So leave out, haven't you? So. Okay.
5/2022, 2656 and 14 Kirkwick.
Okay, so actually we looked at this application not overly long ago, which was withdrawn, but this mirrors exactly that application in that it's a 7-bedroom property, which was previously subdivided into 3 flats and extended to create the coach house, which is this property here on the right-hand side. The property is being returned to a single dwelling, and it is intended that a brick wall will be installed internally to make the coach house fully independent, number 14 Kirkwick Avenue. This planning application to convert the existing rear triple garage into a single-storey pool house with the addition of an interconnecting single-storey extension to create a gym and further open plan living accommodation to the main house, and a small single-storey addition to the side of the property. Design materials are in keeping with the main house, and there appears to be no detrimental impact on the surrounding neighbours, including as part of the proposals to extend the width of the existing vehicle crossover to create a sweeping carriage drive to accommodate 4 cars. Locally, where it's a locally listed building and conservation area, consider no objections subject to the appropriate design and use of materials on this locally listed building.
Has anything changed between this?
Nothing at all, to the point where the drawings have all got exactly the same date.
So why was the first one withdrawn then?
I have no idea. There was no reason explained, or there was no explanation. It's just the letter for it from the district said, thank you, I can confirm it has now been withdrawn. But I don't know, but all of the drawings are exactly the same.
So can you go to the front, the picture of the front again?
Yep.
So the building on the right
It's
Yeah.
a house.
It's the same.
is going to be merged into the building on the left.
So,
No, that's
no.
that's independent.
So it's going to be
It's going to be made independent. So currently, at the
Yeah.
moment, is one massive 7-bedroom house. So what they're looking to do is to actually to brick up a section of the wall inside to mean the house to the right will stand alone to the house to the left.
Okay. And what's the pool house and the gym?
So that is here at the back. So you can see here, you've got 14A.
You can't really see it on the picture.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You might have to look at the drawings then.
I thought that. But
Yeah.
So what you can see between 14 and 14A is that box that you on the
Here we
drawing.
go. This will help to show you, I think.
this is it.
Yeah,
That's
that
the
is
lines
that,
you can see.
basically, you can see it. So what they're looking to do is basically an internal wall. To mean that it will become 2 separate properties again, because at the moment it's actually one.
the coach house is going to be very squished, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very, very cramped.
So I think
It has been-
14A.
It has been a flat until recently.
Yeah, so 14A was originally a separate dwelling,
Yes.
and then in time, what they did was they demolished that wall to create
Oh,
into one
okay.
big
One
property.
big,
They're now
yes.
looking to return it back to 2 separate
To its what it was
properties, yeah.
originally.
And then do these changes to the rear, to the pool house, to then make 14 a much larger.
So what's the little
Yeah.
square bit sticking
I
out?
think-
That is this little,
Square block.
this here, it's like a walkway. It is, yeah.
Yeah, so
So actually that,
But
actually that and that are the probably the key ones.
Yeah.
that's the current.
That's the current and the new,
That's the
think-
current.
I think. Is that not the current and the new? So I think it says exist up.
A lot of extra bulk.
Existing, yes.
It's already there.
A lot of it's already there, yeah.
the picture
here we
with
go,
that sort of
It's sort of
That's
actually.
the
That
proposed.
is
stable house at the side, I call it stable, whatever it was. The picture, it's one bedroom or 2 bedrooms upstairs and a big living room. And I deliver to that. So,
So,
you know, I can park there, I walk up the side, put it in the,
Oh, yeah, yeah, I see.
Big mix of Yeah. I mean, it's got gone out to a very odd shaped living space.
48 on the market recently, or did it come before?
I don't know, I didn't look at Rightmove, that one.
I think it has been, but some time ago, it does ring a bell now.
So you think the owners of 14
Yeah.
have bought it and okay. Well. It's a slight anomaly. But it's, most of it's there already.
It's out
Well,
already.
it was there already,
Yeah.
so yes, I mean, yes, sorry. I mean, if I think it wasn't there,
Yeah, yeah.
would look very,
So is it going to take, what's that, is it,
yes.
what's the building on the right, which is now habitable accommodation, what's it going to be used for?
No, I think
It's still gonna be a
that's gonna be,
house.
It's a house.
that's currently connected, it's gonna be independent, I think.
So that would 14, large house would be
Well,
separate from 14.
So basically what they're looking to do is they're wanting to, so here, they're going to be putting the brick wall back in again.
Okay.
So
At the
that
moment-
this house,
Well,
the
sorry.
big house,
At the moment, the door for this flat is down there.
Yeah.
And I can walk through there to the
Yes.
front door there.
Okay,
And that behind it, in between the two buildings, that will be part of 14.
yes,
Yes.
so it's kind of like a,
It is already.
this is, it's
Yeah.
like a
Yes.
driveway, you can go through to the garages at the back. So the garage at the back is
Yeah.
what they're looking
Yes.
to actually to convert into being part of the main property here, it's the pool house and.
Yeah.
And do we know where the wall is going to go to confirm the separation between 14 and 14A?
It's internal, I think.
That's.
So I don't think
Yeah,
there's
so
any
it's-
physical stuff being built
Oh, no,
outside
no.
on the 14A
Yeah,
side.
no, it's just, it's internal.
So currently there's an internal walkway or
so
something.
it's sort of, and to be a sort of strange tone.
I mean, they could decide that they're going to rent out the bit to the right, I guess.
But it depends, they may have sold it.
I mean, I presume that the main house must have a right of way across this drive,
Yeah.
on the base of the drive.
Actually, I think, Nigel, if you look at it, I think some of that drive is theirs, that's to the right of. It's a
Okay,
bad- it's a
yeah.
badly angled picture.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because it's quite confusing, isn't it? Angled picture. It is still, it's there, but it's a very odd layout.
The little house,
Yes.
that's much, and that's the drive.
Their front is there.
Yeah. The third one, that's it.
Right, so that's just.
To me, it's a bit of a jumble of.
It is, it's a very,
To me, I wouldn't want to live there.
no, I wouldn't want to live in the long, thin,
And all the years I've lived around there, I've never seen anyone coming out the big house.
with a wall separating.
Get someone
Happy
around
with
with
the
some
officer
binoculars.
recommendation?
All in favour of the recommendation?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, that's agreed.
Lovely, right. Another thing we can do?
Well, if somebody needs to leave the room, they need to leave the room.
I'm happy to allow a 2-minute break. I'll turn the stopwatch on. Just Australia beat France,
It was,
just while on a break.
that's where we. It was going to 4-1. There you go.
4-1 to France.
Right, no, it's France.
Oh,
France.
sorry.
France.
So close. Just have to comfort ourselves that, you know, Argentina look like they're not one of our rivals this year, despite all the people.
Australia beat that in school.
The advantage.
Hey, sports all gone a bit mad at the moment. Georgia beat Wales, didn't they, in the rugby at the weekend? Yeah.
That's good.
Now there's leading Man U.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Old news picture.
Is he a manager or a footballer?
He's not nominally a footballer. He's more of a brand.
Yeah.
Mm.
You lose track of who's a manager and who's a footballer. With managers, as far as I can see, I don't particularly read the sports pages, they still seem to waft in and out of jobs
Well,
sometimes.
often players become the
Well,
managers,
yes,
so
yes.
to be fair,
That makes sense.
I mean, there's a reasonable odds if you played in the 2006 England World Cup squad, you're currently managing a team in the Championship or the Premier League. It's, you know,
Yeah.
reasonable odds. Actually, no, Gerrard got sacked, didn't he? I'm on old news.
What I can see in the newspapers of being a manager is a sort of, some clubs, it's a sort of revolving door.
It is.
it is.
We just sacked Ralph Hasenhuttl.
Luton, normally.
Ah, so we took your manager. Lovely. Anyway, back to the meeting. If I can find my page.
Page 27.
So item 8, HTC process for call-in review. So Heather, if you could introduce, then I know
Yeah.
some people want to speak.
Okay, so there's actually sort of two elements to this. The first of them being really whether or not we want to feed back to the district council our various comments and things that we have gathered over the course of time since we've been working on the new process that was implemented back in August. And then the second question relates to actually reviewing how we are currently carrying out the call-in process within the sort of town council process. So yeah, that's essentially really the basis of the report. So the background information covers off the district council's process, the key changes that happened in that new process, and then it moves on to the way that the town council actually implement this new process on behalf of the district council. But I suppose really the three elements is that any feedback, positive or negative, that we may wish to feed back to the district, any questions for the district or points of clarity that we feel that we need to ask of them to address any issues, then also come up with any suggested changes that we'd like to see the district council make to the process. I know that further information, I suppose, has come to light since this report was sent out that we've been able to gather. So, yeah, that's essentially really the basis of the reason for us to discuss.
Lovely. If the committee will permit, I would like to take 2.1.2 first and then move on to the wider process. I think it makes sense for us to talk about how we interact with it before we talk about the process in general. Just as a point that has come up tonight, and I think is a useful point more generally, if it is possible to amend the process that we've been doing so that we only make a decision to call in, and if there isn't if no one is minded to move a motion to call it in, then we don't have to then vote not to call it in. I think that's a lot easier.
Makes a lot of sense.
And I think in practice, when we've been doing it, the reality is we've probably missed some votes where we aren't calling it in simply because it isn't a very natural process to vote not to do something. So I think I would like to make that change, if nothing else, but I know that there are people who like to make other comments. I now open the floor to councillors more broadly. Harry, did you want to?
Yeah, well, so that I had a view more on the more general how it works. Partly as, I mean, I can put it better actually. I sent an email to Matt and Heather yesterday. And I'll get that up to so I'm coherent in what I'm saying.
So I'm just having your particular point, or
No, sorry, we're now discussing the more general.
I mean, if someone's got something particularly about.
Yeah, is there anything in particular?
simply the obvious on that point, yeah.
I figured that was.
So I mean, I said that I think it's worked fine, but I think that the call-in process has meant that we're leading it as a council, almost on behalf of the district council, which I think is a bit of a burden for us. And I got potential way where you could say that it is implied that we are content for any application where we recommend refusal or express concern to be called in by St Albans district councillors if they can get necessary support themselves. So then we would in effect every meeting be creating a shortlist for them to sort of pick and choose if they between themselves think actually this is a really this is the one which needs to be called in. It kind of puts the responsibility back on them to manage the process themselves, and also if the view of the district council was because that there were too many call-ins because previously it just required one single district councillor to call it in. You could get it where you still need 2 or 3 district councillors to call it in, but one single district councillor might think twice before requesting a call in of an application. I think you'll find there will be fewer applications called in than previously. And I think it also removes the risk that we have potentially where if we had, particularly we had a resident in one of our applications present who might speak against an application, we recommend refusal, but then don't call it in. We understand why we're not calling it in because we think it's not, but a resident might find that a bit confusing or potentially quite negative. So I think there's 2 double whammies, and I think it will save officer time because I think it's a bit sort of ungainly, it's a bit unwieldy to have to email all the different district councillors and say, do you support this, do you not support this, and then wait for them to reply. I feel like that's something that district councillors should do themselves.
Yeah.
And take pride in doing it themselves, really, rather than.
That's how it used to be.
Yeah.
So I think just to build on this, I've been thinking about this since you sent to me, which is partly why I came to you first, but I had some thoughts. So I think, firstly, I think the proposal broadly marries up with what I talked about in this committee when we first agreed this proposal, which is it gives us a way of supporting applications where we think that they shouldn't be, we think that they should be refused, but where we don't necessarily think they meet the threshold. If a district councillor wanted to then call it in, we could support a call in without us having to have resort to call it in. I think the only addition I would make in terms of just ensuring that we still can play an active role if we choose is I completely agree with the point about our recommendations creating a shortlist. I think what we would then do is have a way of flagging to district councillors as part of that shortlist an application which we thought merited a call in.
Yeah.
So that we then encourage them to do so on specific applications.
We could have a thing. I did think about that yesterday. I thought, do we want to make how complex do we want to make? Because we can make it a bit complex, but then that could just be rather than it could be us sort of saying we really think you should look at this.
Yeah.
But it's still your choice if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think that's broadly how I think we should approach it, which is that our recommendations of refusal or express concern equate to us saying that if someone wants to call it in, we would support that getting called in.
Yeah.
But what we would do as part of that list is that we would flag applications which we think should be called in if a district councillor wants to, and then it's the onus is still on the district councillors to do the call in.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair and equitable way to do it. As you say, it saves us some officer time. It means that the responsibility is still with district, who are the councillors who are ultimately elected to deal with planning as the local planning authority.
And ultimately, it's clear for a resident who they should go to if they are so concerned about their application that they should be called in, rather than coming to us and then going to the district councillor or come to us or the district councillor.
Yeah. And it gives us some wiggle room if a resident comes to us after a meeting to say, you've recommended refusal, that's really great, can you support a call in?
And we should, well, we didn't have time.
Yeah.
It always used to be that it would be you would direct people to their district councillor.
Yeah. But as I say, the advantage of this process for us is that we can say, well, we would support a call in if 2 district councillors do it. Here are your district councillors.
Would it have to be 2 or just 1?
Well, because the process is
Process is 2 now. It used to be just 1.
Okay.
Could you, I might be being a little bit, so I apologise, but what is what is the change? I don't understand what the change is.
So we wouldn't be initiating call-ins. We would be providing a list of applications that we would support a call-in by recommending refusal or expressing concern. And it would then be up to the district councillors to call it in.
So why, bearing in mind, if like we're used to, if you like, studying planning applications and sitting around properly discussing them and hearing each other's views, would we want to give up that right? Because it's very dependent on who happens to be elected as a district councillor. They, I don't know, they might not even live in Hopenden and they may not have ever sat on a planning committee before.
So I think the point is twofold. So firstly, it's about, there's a wider conversation about the process, which is why I want to have this conversation first, because I think it feeds the wider conversation, which is currently this council, none of us were elected we don't have a democratic mandate to initiate call-ins. It's just not something that we were elected on. Obviously there's an election coming up, then we would. But the point is, under a proper democratic process, it is the district council, which is the local planning authority. And therefore it is likely that they have a better democratic mandate than us to recommend call-ins.
But we can only, we can't do a call-in, we can only initiate it. We still need to have, if you like, the Democrat. Well, for a start, the residents don't understand anything about the different forms of local government. So I don't know, I'm not sure about the democratic nature of it, but we can only initiate a call-in and we still need 2 district councillors to.
Well, my concern is, in theory, we block it. So from tonight, any application we didn't, well, is there another?
No, I agree in the sense that I think what we do, if you assume that there are, in any given application, I think I calculated it's 14 ticks that can physically be given. If we recommend refusal, but we don't recommend to initiate a call-in, we are taking away one of those options. It reduces the chance of a resident securing a call-in by, 5%, something like that.
I'm not suggesting, I like that bit. I'm not suggesting we should block call-ins. But that's what I was asking for clarification of. When I asked for clarification, you said we were, put it as though we were giving up the right to initiate call-ins.
No,
Can we just look at reality? Sorry to put it that way, and it's probably a bit controversial. Can I ask a question of Heather? I've heard on the grapevine that you and Carl either have been invited or will shortly be invited for a meeting with the development manager at St Albans on this subject.
No, as far as I'm aware, that the district council, when they introduced this process, that they were going to review their particular process in 6 months.
Well, I've heard on the grapevine you will be invited to that.
Right, that's news to me, yeah.
Because I've again heard on the grapevine, and also another party might have heard something similar, different, I don't know, that the system's breaking down because of the volume of callings that the change has prompted. That's not specifically directed at Scotland, and that's generally. They now have a backlog of 100 applications. They're overwhelmed. They're 7 months behind schedule. The other problem, of course, is they're totally understaffed. But the system, which was designed to reduce the overall number of call-ins, whether that's a good thing or not, that was the purpose, has actually increased the number. And therefore, whatever we have now will change because St Albans will change it. And incidentally, I've heard what they will change is they'll say, if it's an extension, you can't call it in. Now it's an extension, you just can't call it in because there are too many of those. Well, rightly or wrongly. So and the reason is the time it takes for the committee to decide things and the cost of office time and doing a more extensive report. So that's what I've heard. If anyone's heard different, right, okay. Now, as I see it, and it had various objections when it was going through St Albans district, but we have what we have. But actually, one thing that's great is that we, as a body, we do take this seriously. We do meet every 3 weeks, and we now have a role which we did not have before, whether democratically elected or not. We have this role. We can't stop a call-in happening because 3 district councils can do it anyway. And when we had the downtime because of the Queen's death. In fact, there's at least one call in Harpenden, which we're in favour of, was conducted by district councillors because we couldn't have a meeting. So, okay. But we're not starting with a blank sheet here. We can't really tinker with the way the council deal with it or ask us to deal with it, because they will tell us what's what. But we should be aware of the pressures on the council, and we should be, whilst if we think something merits calling, we do it, even if it's increasing their workload. But we should be conscious that actually their perception so far is that some things have been called in which shouldn't be. That includes for Harpenden. So we shouldn't be too trigger happy, as it were. We should be selective. We should use our judgment.
I would say those of us who've sat on planning for years all said the one obvious result of this is going to be an increase in call-ins.
Yeah, and I think it's good for Harpenden Town Council to have this input. It's good that therefore the town call-in is typically initiated by this sort of discussion, rather than just by a councillor getting a phone call, an email from a resident saying, hey, can you call us in? You look at it for an hour and you think, maybe not. That's how it was, You press a coin, but actually you build up an expertise. But sometimes you thought, actually, I don't want to displease the resident in that room. So there were pressures. This, I think, is a good forum and it works. But I think the idea that we select those few, and it's been almost exclusively 2 per meeting. That we don't ration it, but it has been that. One last meeting was none, and this meeting is 1. I think it's right that we make that selection, otherwise we're applicating the right we've been given. We shouldn't just hand the list over to list of refusals and special concerns over to district councillors and say, you sort it out yourselves. We should make that judgment. And the other thing is, having been a district councillor, it gets very busy. And the last thing I suspect district councillors want to do is have to organise a step in this process that we've invented. Because those who can call in, the ward councillor and the member of planning committee or substitutes, yes, they have a decision to be made, and it may be they talk to one another, ward councillor and district planning committee, but I don't know. Good idea if they do. But what they don't want is to have, I would think, a process enforced on them that you must consult and you have this list and you select what you want. I don't see that working at all. I suspect you all want to do less work, not more.
Just to clarify that, Roger, so is your objection to the principle of the shortlist in general, or is it in relation to just having the shortlist and not us also providing the recommendation? Because I think the proposal at the moment is to do both. To have the list of things we would support accordingly.
We should do what we do now, which is select the 2 or whatever, and that's what then that email that sends out the email to district council. I haven't quite finished. I'm sorry, I've got quite a lot to say. But the thing that's missing is the district asked for this in that they gave no training whatsoever on some of the basics of planning. I think we do a phenomenally good job. I think Heather does a phenomenally good job. But actually, none of us are planning officers, and there's some expertise we're just missing. We need a bit more training or guidance from St Albans, and in particular on what are the criteria for calling. I know it's not paint by numbers, it's not automatic, it's not mathematical, but there are some criteria. For example, the fact that the same thing's been approved before means you wouldn't call it in unless something's different or changed. It's supposed to be, call-ins are supposed to be, district council said in the past, about whether there's a point of principle. It's not just Mrs. Smith next door doesn't like it, as a point of principle. And there probably are other 2 big issues. They haven't told us why these are. So that's why they've just got a whole host of them from the whole district. And I think we should have that training, someone should provide it, and guidance, and then we can do an even better job, because I'm sure we do a good job now, we can do an even better job, and probably avoid some of those call-ins that maybe shouldn't have been made. I suspect that's very few of ours, actually, because they've done well. But I think we should do only as now, which is the 2 or whatever, contact the district councillors. And I think we should, and I'm sorry, this is both what we're doing and St Albans, I know, but then what we're doing. I think instead of emailing all district councillors, we take a view, this is a Hartland thing, because we sometimes get replies saying it's nothing to do with me. No. We should communicate with the ward councillors for that application and the current planning committee members who sit for Hartland seats, which is only going to be, it's a 3+2, and it might even be overlap. And say, if they're not going to call it in, that's fine, that's the end of it. Because I suspect there are far too many emails flying around. If all the parishes are doing what we're doing, which is circulating all of them, I'm happy with the rest of the view that if we don't get the back of district council, then it's all on at the same time, something like that, then that's the end of it. I have finished now.
Okay, I was going to say, right, well, I'm going to make two comments actually following from what you said. One, of course, the fact under the old system, what the calling would only be done by ward councillors.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to Hartland councils because it doesn't make sense to ask somebody who doesn't know here. The other thing I was going to say is that it's not totally relevant, but I've certainly heard that one of the problems is that other parish councils took the route of simply asking for call-ins on every single refusal, any refusal they recommended. I don't know, but that's what I've heard.
Right.
And that's why there's so many.
Any other comments from councillors on this one?
Well, one to add, the form, I don't think is going in correctly, and I suspect it's because a lot of the councillors are new and they've not done this before, and St Albans are not given any guidance. I think for ours, Heather should write the form. All right, district council can change it if they want, but then it means the explanation is the explanation we think. See, at the moment, Heather writes what I think are very good reasons why we refuse, which should be the same reasons why we're calling in.
Yeah.
But what goes on the form is just one liner.
Yes.
And what I've heard is that the planning committee members are looking, well, isn't there a reason for a call in? Because they're not seeing the whole of what Heather writes. It's not difficult to do because it's all copy and paste. So if Heather actually wrote the form, she wouldn't know the names of the other two district councillors at that stage, but actually send that out. And I said to only the Hartland councillors who could add their names if they want to. I think they'd be more useful call-ins, then you wouldn't have this pushback. I don't understand why it's been called in.
Okay, so that's in terms of that process. I mean, can you take that away and look at?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of in a sense, I feel that Councillor Butterworth is right, that the district councillors are pressured in so many other ways, that by having an email sent from, from Heather at Harpenden again, here we go, my third, every 3 weeks I get an email from her. I think by filling in the call-in form, it's neither here nor there to me. I still have to fill in that information into the email, but actually by completing the call-in form correctly, using the relevant information and the relevant policies, which I think are really key, that would help with the potential success of that call-in being submitted, because the work has already been done to an extent, especially with applications where we have a very short deadline. If we've got one that's being due to be called in on Friday, the pressure is huge. The earliest really I can do it is Wednesday morning in the hope that somebody will pick it up relatively quickly. So, I'm not averse at all to changing my process in actually, instead of it being an email where there's this copy and paste scenario, I can fill in the call-in form in a uniform fashion, that will be submitted to look exactly the same. So, I have no issue with that, because one thing I need to be quite careful of is that this process, obviously being new, has added extra burden on the officer team. So by whatever new process we agree to do, we need to be mindful of that it doesn't create more burden on anyone, not just actually officers, but also district
Makes
councillors
sense,
too.
because over the years when I've done call-ins, and in the past I've done quite, well, not as many as on that, but I've done a fair number, but I've always had a consistent format of how we'd write the call in, and as a fundamentalist, to refer to the relevant policies.
Yeah. I mean, that actually is done. It's the explanation that's a bit, that comes out too short. But it's allied with focusing only on the harm of the councillors, what concern the ward councillors and planning commission members. I think we should ask, and we can't enforce, the councillors across all the department boards. If you get one of these emails, please reply whether or not you're going to take it up, so that Heather doesn't waste a lot of time not knowing what's happening. It's very easy for the council to say, yes, I'll look at this and I'll get back to you within 24 hours, 48 hours, or to say, no, I'm not going to do this. Either way. And as part of that, we could politely suggest that for each ward, not the planning committee members, but for each ward as ward councillor, they perhaps, if they wish to, select one who's going to be the primary contact. For example, in West, I did all the call-ins because the other councillors had other things, expertise, and they were very happy for me to do this, and I actually quite enjoyed it. And that worked. So if I was still a councillor, Heather would know I'd deal with it, or I'd say, I don't agree.
Yes.
And if I was on holiday,
Yes.
then I agree, because Heather doesn't get a reply within whatever, 36 or whatever, then she can go to someone else. But so just to try to minimise the burden for Heather, she knows what she's doing. And I mean, that says you don't want.
No, yeah.
And for the district councillors, so you're not all looking at the same thing, or we're still, none of you looking at it. I don't pick you out, because you're all busy.
I think, while I take the point, I don't think I'd make it a policy to not go to district councillors who are in a ward, even if there's a person who's, I just think if we get into a period where you can't agree that in a ward team, for example, if you've got 3 councillors from 3 different political parties who don't work together, then I think trying to set that precedent ends up with the town council playing a lot of political.
Funny enough, I was thinking of the current situation where each ward is one party, but I agree that needs separate consideration.
We have elections in May.
No, I agree entirely.
I mean, historically, it has always been that regardless of whatever the makeup is you form, it should go to all ward councillors.
I'm not saying, my point is more in terms of policy, I think it's safer to assume that district councillors can't agree a nominated person than to say they should have to, and then end up with.
Yes, so it should really just go to all.
Yeah.
I think also it's useful for all ward members to be aware as well. It's not just only one councillor being
Yes,
made aware.
should be
I think
aware.
it's actually a uniform. I'm letting all ward members know that this particular application has.
I think what I was feeling for is not so much, it's not an official process, but in your ward, for example, you might agree amongst yourselves, it can be completely private, that actually one of you will deal with these things and the others can sit back and do something else. That can be entirely private. Otherwise, how do you know who's going to deal with it?
But then the point is more that you then have to have 4 different processes depending on the ward.
No. It's send it to everyone, but only to the board. But you just have your own process, so you know what.
But
Yes,
that's,
but then you don't build, but then that doesn't get built into.
No.
no.
So that's not something that we need to worry about.
Agreed.
Something that, yeah,
Agreed.
that's
Yeah,
outside of this.
Agreed.
I think, yes.
I've listened to conversations, but I still find the sending the emails to district councillors, I just think that's weird. It's not to like Heather constructing man's burden. We can have to look at the process in the future and whatever, long term. And I just think that it's just us working for the district council.
Well, no, because it compensates for the fact that
We can flag it, we can literally spoon feed them that way, but
they're not, well,
that's my
I think they're relatively new to council at the moment, and I didn't use the word spoon fed, you
That's why I
did.
used it. I used it.
But I think people, even however new they are, they will build up a knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
We're all on a journey, that's right. But having the involvement of the town, it compensates for the number of planning committees going down from 4 to 1. There was one for Hartland, North, which Cleaston and Hopton, which and Redbourne, I thought worked quite well. We've lost that. So this compensates, it's local knowledge. So I think it's quite precious that we should do this. Continue to do it.
And as I say, I think there's a conversation to be had about what we recommend for call-in and a conversation about that. I don't think we need a policy specifically on that. That's a conversation we can have as a council separately. I think that the main, in addition to the change that I talked about earlier about the sort of quite simple thing on not calling in, not needing a vote on, I think that the change I would make is to adopt the majority of what Councillor Hill proposes in terms of agreeing, at least as a point of principle, that if we recommend refusal or express concern on something, that a district councillor then comes to us and says, I want to call this in, we would support that, having agreed as a committee that we think it should be refused.
Oh, right, that's something we haven't.
That's different.
That's something we hadn't written before.
Yeah.
And nor has it arisen.
There's no reason why, as a policy, something not having arisen.
So that's where a district council has initiated it. Well,
Yeah.
the president probably has, but to come through a district council. And that's more down to officer action at the time, because we're not going to have another meeting.
No.
So
So if we set as a point of principle that we are happy for the officer to support a call in, if we recommend refusal or express concern and a district councillor comes to us to
no, we have no problem with that. Fine.
Completely agree.
I think that's a basic point of principle.
A logical way to do it.
Yeah.
And it is close, in a way, closer to the.
Yeah.
To the old system, because it is, because
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So we could still say to a resident, even if we say, if it was one,
Yes.
tonight, for example, where we didn't agree to will in tonight, we can say, well, if you want to, you can still go to your district
Yes.
councillor.
Because,
And
yes,
we've now got a policy
Yes.
basically where
Yes.
we won't.
yes, because if if a resident have had it for ages, most of them have now registered, have retired from district council, it took them a very long time. But if I did, I would prefer them to contact
So we can still,
Absolutely. No, that's
the
right.
district council.
as long as we can still refer them to district councillors.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yes,
And I think we should.
That's
When-
what I would do.
When I did refuse, as a district council, I did refuse some, and I would always say, but you can contact other councillors.
yes, yes.
I'm not sure people did, but never mind.
Yeah, but
But I think we should have some guidance, which Heather could send out as a note if asked by a resident, or could even be on the website, saying broadly what our role is. And this point, and you can talk to your district council direct.
I mean, I suppose I wouldn't mind, if we've said no objection, but two district councillors, local district councillors, wanted to do a call-in because something has transpired, because they've gone to visit the site and they think, both district councillors think it's fairly obvious that it should be called in. I wouldn't mind
I think
the officer able, we would support that.
I think Simba arose at one stage and Carl was not happy with that change of heart, as it were, without there being another committee this.
Yeah.
I think we're slightly getting into, if we have no objection, we get these sometimes where someone comes to us after a meeting, and unless there is something which is sufficient that I would genuinely think, yes, let's come and talk about it again, we make a decision in this meeting based on what we've got in front of us. I think if we're not objecting, I think that we have to draw a line somewhere, otherwise we're
guess so.
taking ourselves out of the
But
process.
I
entirely.
suppose you would have a situation where two district councillors have visited the site and we would none of unlikely to have visited the site. But yeah, that's fine.
You,
I think it
you
might-
hope they could find a third district council.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Yes,
That's
I wouldn't,
That's true.
if that happened, I wouldn't expect to get involved.
Yeah.
they'd just find a third district councillor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. There is a way. Yeah, that's.
And the advantage we have in Harpenden, unlike in some other
Yes.
wards, is that we do have 3 district councillors in every
Yes.
ward.
You
So
would actually considerably compromise your position and would put us in a very difficult position. If you'd said no objection and then you went and supported a call to refuse, you would actually seriously compromise this committee.
I think express concern is as close to the line as I go, and that's purely because if we've expressed concern, there's an implication that we would support a refusal if that concern is
Yeah.
considered to be significant.
Okay, final question. If it's expressed concern, does it have to be on the topic of the calling? So we could have expressed concern due to the lack of parking but the calling could be due to overlooking debate about the 45-degree rule.
Yes, because what I would say in that context is if we had a concern and then there is another concern that we haven't picked up, it suggests there's an even stronger case for it to be rejected. Would be my argument. If we have a concern that's different to the district councillor, then that suggests that there's a lot of concerns.
But, okay, but then if you're talking about retrospective concerns,
Yes, but we're not, by supporting a call-in, we're not saying that we support everything on the call-in sheet. We're just saying that we support the principle of it being called in.
I mean, yes, because I mean, if I was doing it, if we had the call in right and there was expressed concern, I wouldn't do a call in.
No,
Well, there may be some instances where actually there is real uncertainty as to what the right answer should be as a question of judgment, and therefore you want it to go to the committee to solve that point of principle.
I think it's best to leave. I think the way that we're talking about doing it gives us a balance between leaving it to the district councillor, who as I say, I think is the point of principle. District councillors are elected to a local planning, primary principal planning authority. They are therefore the people who we should be looking to do these things. But it removes a situation where we act as a blockage to district councillors.
There's always the way around.
Pardon?
There's always the way around.
I know, but my point is, I don't think that residents would necessarily look very kindly on this committee if we're saying that something could absolutely not be allowed. And then we cause a blockage that means it isn't called in, and then it's.
But the other thing is, with planning,
An obstacle.
An obstacle is not.
if planning is about getting the right answer, it's not about doing something that's politically expedient for
Yes, and
more residents,
and-
unfortunately.
And policy is about having the right policy. The question isn't about planning, the question is about policy. So we're not saying, there is a distinction. What we're saying is that the process should work a certain way. We're not saying that everything we call in should be rejected. What we're saying is this is the way that the policy for calling things in should work, and that is a political consideration about.
It's also a planning policy consideration. You can't make planning political. The law doesn't allow it.
No, but we're not making planning political. What we're doing is we're talking about the policy under which planning is governed, which is inherently something which is going to end up being a political consideration of are we as a committee doing what we were elected by the people to do? Are district councillors doing? Are we putting barriers between? These are all things that are policy rather
Given that this is something we couldn't do before, it's
But
not a barrier.
It's not, because planning's quasi judicial.
Yeah,
Yes, but policy isn't, is my point.
But yes, but we're following a quasi judicial process.
Yes. But our policy isn't about, right,
I understand.
yeah. It's fine,
I think we're making it far more complicated than we need to.
yes.
I think,
And a lot of what I was saying, admittedly, quite excitedly, because I'm quite passionate about getting this right, was about making it simpler and streamlining,
Yes.
so,
not about making it more complicated.
Are we able to have someone write down what we think the new guidelines are? I think there's two strands, isn't there? There's
Right.
2 points.
so as it stands, so right, I'll propose. Agree any changes, right, so that requires me to put a motion, presumably?
Well, let's just.
Well, we need to decide what we want these changes to be.
Okay. So as the chair, I will put forward what I think the committee has agreed to, and we will have a vote on it. Because I think that's the easiest way to do it. And if I'm wrong, then we will have a continued discussion. Right, so we have agreed that we should only have a vote on calling it in if it is a positive decision to call in, rather than also requiring a vote on not calling it in. Are we all in favour of that change?
Agreed.
That's an important standing order.
Absolutely.
Yes. Right. We have agreed, as I understand this, and I know there isn't unanimous position on it, we've agreed that broadly the current position with the changes we've talked about making in terms of the way that Heather specifically manages the process of calling in, the current position on recommending a call-in remains broadly unchanged. Are we all agreed that that's what we've agreed? In terms of the positive process of recommending a call-in.
Yeah, I think it's called initiating, but yes.
Initiating a call, yes, sorry, initiating a call.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I think that this is the one that I think I need to put to a vote. We have also agreed that this committee would support a call-in on where we have recommended refusal or expressed concern if district councillors come to us having initiated a call-in and ask for our support. Does a majority of the council agree with that position?
You have to ask the council.
All in favour of that position? That's
I'm not sure. Well, anyway,
So that's carried. Right, so that is the new.
So that is, so, okay, I'm going to pick it up purely from recording, there's no way.
That's fine.
So is it my understanding then that going forward, that I will not be sending or not be actually doing this call-in form and sending it off to the district councillors for the ward and to the wider district group, as I have currently been doing up until now? I'm waiting essentially for a district councillor to contact me.
No.
No, so this is where I'm getting.
Where we initiate a call-in, the
Yes.
process is unchanged, with the exception of if it's possible, what Roger suggested about us
Calling
writing
in the
call-in.
form, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
And with the exception, as I say, of what Roger suggested about us just contacting Hartland and councillors. What we're saying is that if a district councillor comes to us for something where we have not recommended a
Right,
call-in, but we
okay.
have recommended
The
refusal.
refusal,
or
fine, I
expressed
understand that,
concern,
yeah,
we
okay,
would then support that,
right, okay, that's then an added strand.
Yeah.
That's fine,
but
yeah, I
hopefully not,
understand that.
hopefully not too much extra. in terms
No,
of-
I mean, that's neither here nor there, and it's no different than answering any email that I get for any other.
Maybe a detail, but Heather in her email to politely request that there's now still a number of recipients that they reply positively or negatively within time period.
Yes, yeah, I mean, I think I've already asked for that anyway,
Do you? Okay. I'm sure it happens all the time.
And it,
so,
it might be that we can even potentially initiate call-ins less, because we can say, well, we can, I still wonder if there's a way we can sort of flag things up to say, look, we didn't initiate call-in, partly because we know how much effort officer time it is for us, how much time it is for district councillors. Also how much officer time it is for district officers, and the expense, which I think is. Anyway,
I think just for the recording,
Yeah.
as part of the reason.
that's the reason, yeah. And then,
So I think I've already done.
so the point is that we can still say with that third thing we've said.
Yeah.
We might initiate fewer call-ins because we can now say, look, we didn't initiate a call-in ourselves, but that doesn't mean we're not against a call-in. We still support call-in.
I think Councillor Hill's point isn't that we would do this in public. I think the point is if councillors feel strongly that something should be called in, that we don't need to resolve a call-in in order to go and do that. What we can do is we can go out of committee. I'm not
That's it. That was it.
wrongly
Yes, that was
paraphrasing
it.
you.
That was it.
Okay, that's fine. I agree.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Consider the current
Yeah.
SADC process. And
well, sorry, we haven't quite finished.
Okay.
One of the things I suggested was standard notice for them to send to any residents or contact us about applying for this.
Yeah.
Maybe go to the website, just setting out what our role is, not necessarily all of this detail.
Yeah.
But just, we do this, through
Yeah.
we decide, but you can still go to your district councillors and this little.
That's I think that's fine. I don't need a resolution for that. That's just
yeah, no, that's just kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just written guidance, really. I think some of it's already available out there anyway.
Yeah, and sorry, I think, I don't know what we're intending about this resolution, but I think it's just to record our current views, because there are going to be discussions between St Albans and officers here. So I don't think we should decide anything definitively now.
Right.
And indeed on some of them, Carl may have a view. So I think we're simply setting up our current thoughts.
I think I'm not entirely sure we can make policy by not making policy. I think this is the new policy we've agreed tonight is policy. We will review it if material circumstances change. So if material circumstances change in the SADC call-in process, then we would come back and review it in light of the new information.
Would it have to go to full council? No.
It's a policy that's going. Otherwise, we'd have to have the same conversation at the next meeting in order to have a process for that
I
meeting.
think you missed the meeting with someone when this committee decided on this.
Yeah. Is there anything further, Roger?
Not procedural points so much, but I think we should ask Andorrans to provide training and guidance. Basic planning and what's constituted grounds for calling.
I think under 2.1.1, we feed that back.
Yes, I mean, to be honest, and this was something that Carl mentioned to me before, is that in light of the fact that we've had further information kind of shared with us in relation to the district, you know, coming up against these particular issues, as to whether or not actually this committee tonight would like to feed back to the district on the current process, in the view that actually the district are likely to be making some dramatic changes anyway, as to whether or not actually the committee then looks at those and feeds back following the refresh.
Well, that's why I wanted this to be original rather than definitive, because we're at risk of making some changes now and then seeing a completely different landscape in a month's time. And
redo it all.
But the point is, if we don't make it definitive now, then at the next meeting, we have no agreed policy.
well, we have the existing one
We have the existing one.
just for another 3 weeks.
So we have to have the same conversation. So I just think.
We should agree that, so if we want to change, we can change it.
Yeah.
If we don't change it, we don't change it.
I mean, this
I
is our
think-
policy until we discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever it's needed.
If there is a material change which merits a concern, I don't think residents will have a problem with us changing our policy again, if that's.
Yeah.
what's
And it
required.
may well be that there are elements, if we do, it doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah.
everything changed, we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater.
It could be that potentially that what the district council, the changes the district council make might just relate to the nature of applications that we call in. So in a sense, that makes no difference to our own policy.
How we
Because
apply.
it's just, because we'll know that if they decide that extensions are no longer call-inable, that's the word. If you're able to actually if you're no longer able to do that, then that's fine, because we know that's part of the process, that
Yeah.
maybe the flow chart would change, but
Yes.
our policy, our principles will not have changed.
Yeah, I think at this point, if there is any further feedback that committee members would like to raise about the call-ins, I think if we can ask that that's sent to Heather for her to.
Yeah,
relay
and
centrally.
be shared back with the district, the
I
relevant
think
moment.
we've spoken about this policy for quite a long time. I think it's, as I say, if there's anything else that we can talk about that outside of the meeting, and share with district.
That was approved then, yes?
Yes.
Most of it,
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, no, but there was nothing that required a vote beyond the votes that we had, so.
Okay, moving on to
Item
appeals.
9, appeals. We have an appeal decision at 15 Langaroo, 15, 17 and 19 Tuffnells Way, which have been allowed. And they not awarded costs, I don't think.
There's not any award costs, no.
And we have an appeal decision at 2nd Ambrose Lane, which has also been allowed. It's just a noting. Preservation order tree works for noting. The list of weekly St Albans District Council decisions for noting. Conservation area tree works and technical applications for noting. The next meeting of this committee will be held on Tuesday, the 6th of December. At 7:30 p.m. in this chamber. The next meeting of St Albans John Lowe Planning Committee will be held on Monday, the 28th of November at 7 p.m. The meeting will close at 9:50. 9:51.
Okay,
Thank you.
I would just add a comment now when meeting's closed.
bear with me a second and I'll just stop the recording.